I've made one image plane that's in the file that you have. All I usually do with these image planes is I just hold down Shift and make a copy and rotate it about 90 degrees. Now I have two image planes here. Just going to butt this one right up against that one and kind of shove it over to the side. So something like that. Hop over to my material editor, grab material, and under maps we'll go get our image, which is, it's in your 430 folder, and this one will be the front, and you can see that's what it's going to look like. And a quick way to make another image of the same type of thing is just drag this one over and then just click here and grab the side. There we go. And we'll drag that one over here. We'll rename this. It can be renamed anything. There we go. Okay. So we've got our model, or we've got our templates. You can see there's our horse leg. That's the front. Pretty close. Now you can adjust these if you wanted it to be thinner. You can see I don't want it too thick. So I'm going to adjust this down a little bit. And just scoot this over, and we'll make sure the side looks about right. Oops, wrong one. There we go. I want the side to be about like that, I think. We'll scoot that in. Okay, and there's our image planes for the this horse leg model. Both of those are drawn. They're pretty stylized, and I'm certainly not an anatomy expert on horses, so some of this is made up, but as I model it, I'm going to be making up some parts and pieces anyways. And how I'm going to start modeling this, instead of starting with a box like we have in the past, I'm actually going to start with a cylinder. I'm going to drag out this cylinder. It doesn't really matter what the dimensions are of it yet. I'm going to color it something somewhat horse leg colored. And what I'm going to do is go to my, get the right viewport here. Which one do I want? I'm going to go to my front viewport. Actually, here we go. Okay. I'm going to move that cylinder over here. I made it in the perspective viewport. And it's not lined up properly. There we go. Okay. So I've got my horse leg here. Also, I'm going to change these all to smoothed highlights, except for top. I really don't need that one right now. Okay, here's my cylinder. And you can see that I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. I'm lining it up with this area of the leg right here. The height's going to be a lot longer. We're also going to put edged faces on in all of our viewports so we can see what's going on. And I'm going to hit Alt-X for that particular object. And then I'll zoom in and out of these different views fairly quickly. What I'm going to do is match this up with this piece of the foot. And you can see I'm adjusting the height just to get it somewhat close. It doesn't have to be exact. And hop over here. Get the right, there we go, right axis. And it's not going to be straight. We don't want them straight anymore like we have in the past. I think that will work. Oops, not that one. Rotate our image. Okay. And our front looks like it's kind of screwed up here. Let's see. Oh, this is a user view, that's why. Okay. If I get the right view here, we'll be able to go. That was a user view. I didn't notice that. There we go. Okay. So now, front's lined up, left is lined up, and if I go down here to my perspective view, you'll see I'll be able to kind of move this around in space and line it up. So I'm going to go to my maximize view, you'll see me hitting the F key for front, the L key for left, and the the P key for perspective. Okay, so now we've got this cylinder in there. The next thing we need is we don't need 18 sides. Now we really don't know exactly how many sides we're going to need, but I'm going to give myself an even number so that both sides are going to be equal. You can see that's 8. That looks about right. And I think I'm going to stick with 5 segments for this for the time being. Okay? Go back to front. And now I'm going to convert my cylinder to an editable poly so I can get a hold of these pieces. The first thing I'm going to do is select that top piece, delete it, and the bottom piece. There we go. And delete that. So now I have open ends, and we're going to do edge modeling on this, so that's what we want. And I'm going to grab these vertexes and start to kind of bend them to match my horse leg shape here. Go. These can come out a little bit down here. We're just kind of bending them around to match our shape. We're not getting very exact right now. We don't really need to. Whoops. And I think I'm going to bring these down to this segment of the leg right here. Looks like a good division area. There we go. Okay, and you can see I've kind of matched the side here. I'm going to go over to the front. Oh, we're in the front. The left view. There we go. And we're going to manipulate these as well. Now these you'll have to drag through and make sure you get everything all the way through. I'm going to do a lot of scaling on these. So you'll see me kind of pinching these down. Make sure you drag all the way through and get all of those vertices on the other side. And there we go. Zoom in here so I can see a little bit better. You can see through to the other side, so you want to grab those vertices on the other side where you need to. This guy's going to come up a little bit, I think. Oops. I'll carry away there. I'm making this like a little bit thicker than it is in the drawing, at least through this section. I don't think it looks quite right. There we go. You can see it's a little bit thicker through here, and it matches up here. I think that'll work a little bit better. And these pieces down here, oops, I'm just going to shove them up a little bit so I have a little bit more even piece here at the bottom. There we go. Okay, and if we go back to perspective, you can see this got a little wigged out. There's our leg. I think if I go back to my front, looks good. Left looks good. And there's our leg. You can see it kind of matches up right there. And it's going to match up over here. That's what we want. It doesn't have to be exact. So when you get some areas, like you can see this little area right here, get that out a little bit far. I'm just going to maneuver a few of these back into shape. I don't want any real spiked areas in it. Okay? So, go back to front for that. So now we've got that piece of the leg done. And we're going to continue up the leg. We're going to do this piece next. It's very similar to the last piece we did. And now we're going to make another cylinder. I'm going to hop out here to my 4 views this time so I don't have to make it again. Okay, here's our cylinder. This time I'm going to make it a little closer to the leg so I don't have to go moving it around. That's our left view. And we'll just kind of position this in place here. And we're going to hop over to its parameters, and we'll guess at the height and all. Again, I'm going to make this kind of a horse leg color. Rotate this guy around. This time I'm going to give it, it's still going to have 8 sides. We want to try and make it have the same amount of sides because we can always add more geometry. So we'll be going with 8 sides all the way up the leg. But my height segments, I'm going to bump it up to 6 this time. I've got a little bit more detail in here to deal with. Now, I'm going to convert this to edit poly, and we'll do the same thing that we did before to our other one. Here, I can just grab them here. Get rid of the top, and we'll get rid of the bottom. So now if I go to my perspective view, you'll see there's no top, there's no bottom. And I'm going to hop over to my maximize views again. Go to vertex, zoom in a little bit here so we can see what's going on. I'm going to Alt-X this so that I can see. Now in this case, I want to rotate these vertices around a little bit up here towards the top because I want them to match the flow of the body. And you can see I'm just kind of rotating them around. Same is going to happen down here at the bottom. Just going to rotate these guys a little bit. This group here is going to rotate. This is going to rotate. This guy's going to rotate. And you'll see when we're all done, we will have something that's going to line up a little bit better with these joints. Okay, and now I've got some constructing to do here. I'm going to make these quite a bit bigger. I'm just using scale. I'm scaling in one direction, even though I know I'm going to have to scale when I get to the other viewport. That's okay. Just getting these close, just blocking it in. And I think in this case, I'm going to go down to, I'm going to grab this whole thing, shrink it down a little bit, and I'm going to go down to these joints here. So I'm going to cover this joint right here, a little bit below the knee, right there, and down here, I'm going to squish this a little bit more. I want this joint right here. I'm going to leave a space in here, and I leave a space wherever I get to that I don't think I can model with that primitive. So in this case, I think using the cylinder down there by the knee isn't really going to work. So now I'm lining up this side first. There we go. So that is pretty close. Grab these guys over here. Some people use soft selection for this. You can. I like to just kind of line up the lines so they're relatively straight and follow the geometry. If you use soft selection, set it to an amount so that you're still getting these flowing lines coming down here. You can see these lines here are probably going to need to come over so that they follow that flow a little bit better. So you end up with something along those lines. Okay, now this is going to take some work on the other viewport, of course. I'm following the geometry right now, so I'm just lining these up so that they're a little bit better aligned with these muscle structures that I've got in here. You can see I'm kind of lining it up with these muscles that are up here. Okay, now left viewport's going to need some help. And we're going to do similar over here. Just stretching to start with. A lot of geometry stretching around in there. These guys can come up a little bit more. There we go. Okay, and you can see these vertices here are going to need to come in. This is an area where I may need more geometry. So I'm not going to panic too much. You can see we're just going to move those in to follow the line there. A little bit closer. And we'll do the same thing over here. You'll notice we're also ignoring the back and the right view. And that's because I tend to go back to those views once I get this blocked in. So we're really just blocking in the shape right now. Oops. Okay. Go. Pretty close to our shape. Don't worry if you need more geometry. We can always add more later. And you can see in my perspective view now, if I get this lined up, we have this side here. So our front view looks pretty good. Our left view looks pretty good. And if we shift it over to perspective, you can see it kind of lines up pretty well there. Okay? So now we have another piece of geometry. Again, we're ignoring these back sides for the time being. We're going to come back to those. Looks pretty good so far. So we're going to do this top area now. And for that, I'm actually going to use circles for this. And I'm going to just drag these circles out. Hop over here to my 4 viewports. I could drag them out here in my top view. So I'm not using spheres, I'm using circles. And there we go. There's one. And then I can make clones of this circle just by holding down Shift. And I'm looking at this little copies. And it won't be real obvious what I'm doing here. Okay, I'll start with 3. And what I'm going to do with these is position them, and I can rotate them. They're going to be this top piece, and what I'm going to use is the surface modifier on these. And I'm just lining up the edges right now. I'm not worried about how big they actually are. There we go. Trying to figure out how many more of these I want. I think I'm going to do one here. This one's going to get actually, these are all going to, I'm going to slowly rotate them up here. So you'll see them start to change their position. This one's going to be a lot more sideways. There we go. And one more. It's going to be up here. one's going to be even more skewed. And we're skewing these because this is going to wrap around eventually to the body. And it'll make more sense here in the next viewport when I get to it. There we go. And this one's going to be nearly totally skewed. There we go. Okay, so we end up with something like that. Now if I go over to my left viewport, it'll be a lot more obvious what I'm doing once I get these guys positioned. You can see they're going to need to be moved around a little bit. Okay, and with my splines here, I'm going to convert these to editable splines and start moving these vertices around. It's going to look a little funky until we get everything lined up properly. So these guys come in. There we go. Turn that off. This guy's going to be an editable spline. Editable spline. And I'm just trying to line these splines up so as they are going to shoot up along this leg, they're going to be somewhat lined up. They're not going to be perfect because I'm going to change them once I'm done with the surface modifier. Also attach these if you wanted to. We're going to anyway, so if you wanted to not have to convert them to editable spline every time, you could attach them. There we go. And that's going to come down. That guy's going to lift up just a little bit. And we're pretty close there. I think that will work. Okay, if I go over to front, I'm going to double check this. We've got a few pieces that got wiggled a little bit out of place here. See, we want them to match up. Those match up pretty well. I think this guy down here. This needs its, that one. There we go. Want that piece out a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now that we have these circles lined up, we're going to get these ready for the surface modifier. And in mine, while the sound was off, I actually attached these. So what I did was I clicked on the first one. So I clicked on this circle here, went over to attach, hit attach, and then I attached each one. So I clicked on this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And that will make them one solid object. You'll have to do that. I'm going to turn off attach then. And on top of my editable spline object now, I'm going to add cross section, which is the first of the pieces. It usually comes in linear by default. You can see these straight lines here. I'm going to change this to smooth. You can also change this to Bezier corner if you want, but I tend to use smooth, and then I'll change it when I get to edit poly. You can see that it's wrapping around pretty well there to match up with our leg. After that, I'm going to add a surface modifier, this one. I have Alt-X on mine, but if yours comes in inside out, which is common with the surface modifier, that's because of the direction you selected those circles. Just hit flip normals so that it's facing the right way. And then I'll hit Alt-X so that I can see what's going on with this. Okay, this steps is going to become important, but first we're going to add an edit poly modifier on top of this, and you'll see now we're in polygons. Now, I can go back down to the surface modifier with this button on. You'll see with it off, if I just go back and forth, it clicks everything on and off. I'm going to click Show End Result back on so that I can see things from a lower level. And I'm going to bump up the steps, and you can see that now you can see what it would look like. We don't want a lot of polygons. So we want something along two. I think we're going to go with 1 for the time being here, just because I don't want a lot of polygons to keep track of. Go back to front. Okay, we'll go back up to Edit Poly now. You can turn off Show End Result. We probably won't be going back down the stack. I'm going to grab a few of these vertexes and move them to match up with my sides a little better. This side looks real good. There we go. Go over to the left, or the front viewport. Turn this off. Now go over to the left viewport. There we go. Click on this guy. And everything looks like it's in pretty good shape here. Wrap this piece around a little bit more at the top. This top piece will become important here in a second. We're going to get in there and manipulate it. Alright, so I think I got all the pieces about where I want them for this. I'm going to go to Polygon, and I'm going to delete these polygons down below and open up those bottom pieces and the top piece. You'll see it's right here. Because I want those to be open borders, and that surface modifier tends to make some funky capped pieces there. Now while I'm up here, you can see I'm getting a lot of kind of stuff jammed up in here. And I really don't even need this edge. You'll see if I go over to my left view, why is this, do I have caps on or something? My views have started wigging out here. Okay, let's go back over to our my views aren't working anymore. I've got something on here that I'm not seeing. Anyways, just go this way. So front, this is our top, this is our left. Okay. And what I was saying before I messed up my views is this area up in here we really don't need very much. I'm going to rotate around a little bit, move this down, and we can delete some of these polygons in here. And just get rid of some of them because we're not going to need them. That's going to be an open edge eventually. Right through there. That's probably going to be pretty good. You can see now we've got about where the horse's body is going to open up. And I'm going to grab some of these vertexes here. Oh, I've got another. I missed some polygons here. There's some right up in there. Let's get rid of those guys too. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to weld a few edges together while I'm here just to get rid of a few things. I'm going to use target weld. And I'm going to weld these edges together. Same thing over here. And I'm just going to simplify that joint because I really don't need very much in there. I can weld this one to there. And over on this side, we can weld this guy to there. And see how that kind of simplifies that edge for us. And we're not going to have to worry about it because that's going to be one big open edge that would actually just plug into the side of our horse. So that works. Okay, I'm going to hop over here to my viewport again in perspective. Kind of poking around a little bit. And let's take a look at this. I want this piece down. I'm going to weld this piece right here down. This piece can weld in there. Just kind of rounding that out where it's going to plug into the horse. This particular vertex here can move over and make this a nice simple curve. There we go. And actually that came out pretty good. I'm on the back here, and I'm just moving a few vertexes to follow the lines of the anatomy a little bit better. Just kind of poking around here. You can see from the top, I want some of this area to come out a little bit more. There we go. Get a little bit more round. I'm looking for any areas that are really angled. You can see right in here. See how that's really angled there? That's not what I want. So I'm just going to move these in a little bit. Just kind of get that angle toned down. We can always add more geometry, which we'll be doing here. But for the time being, I think we'll settle with the low poly version. Alright. I think that's... my viewports have just stopped working for some reason. I'll fix that during the next time out. So there's what we've got so far with our horse leg. We're going to join these pieces together now. I'm in the front viewport right now. One thing we need to do is we're going to have to attach all these pieces now. And obviously they're going to be all one piece eventually anyway, so that's fine. So we've got these attached. At this point, I'm going to collapse this down because I really don't need any of those other pieces in there. And I have had trouble using some of these editable poly tools like Bridge when you get too many things in the stack. Now, I'm going to try, I'm going to zoom in here, I'm going to try and use Bridge. I've had trouble, and maybe it's just my computer, but I've had trouble using Bridge. I'm on Edge, by the way. I'm going to select an edge, select this edge, and I'm going to use Bridge. Okay, that one worked. And I'm going to bridge these all the way across. Remember, they're not going to fit perfect. So this edge and this edge. Make sure you get the right edges. Okay, it looks like my computer's going to behave. For the time being, rotate around. A little bit more. This is why when we made those original cylinders and sections, cross sections, we want them to be the same amount. so that when we do connect these, we're at least in the ballpark of what we want to do. Okay, these are going to be the same way, and these are going to stretch a longer ways, obviously, across. Double check, make sure that's right. Okay, I'm going to hit bridge. If I hit Alt X, you might be able to see this a little bit better, in case you're not familiar with the bridge function. You can also use those open borders and use bridge with those, but because we use the cross-section modifier, I tend to get them to switch. They kind of invert themselves, and what I end up with isn't very useful. But that might be the direction that I made the cross-section. It might be something that I'm doing. I'm not sure. But I've never had much luck using bridge with those open edges on something that's been attached like this. So, okay, so there's what we have. And you can see down here now, if I go back to Alt X, this area here is going to need some work. So I'm going to zoom in here first. First thing I'm going to do is add some sections in here. We use connect for that. Remember, connect makes those sections across. And I'm looking at this, figuring out how many sections I'm going to need. I'm going to try that many. Remember, pinch is in here as well. I'm going to push these sections out, and then there is slide if you need that. Again, I'm using max 8, and this is new in max 8. So you won't be able to do that if you're not using max 8. Now we're going to get in here and maneuver some of these pieces around. And what I like to do is kind of, there we go. See, I'm using these as dividers on this edge here. And what I mean is I'm kind of molding this edge right here with those new segments. There we go. This one can come all the way back. See, this piece here is going to need to be the farthest piece back on that edge, because we don't really have anything else to define that edge. There we go. Move this out just a little bit. Okay. Now, if you want more edges, you certainly can just come in here, grab, say, these guys, hit connect. Oops. I don't want that many. I just want one piece. Hit OK. And now you can pull this piece out, and you can just kind of model those hard to get areas. Now, this little guy here, I don't really need it in this piece of the geometry. So what I'm going to do is just go to target weld, and we'll just weld those down, just like that. So I've got that little piece that can kind of stick out and define that area a little bit more. And that's a good way to get into these rounded areas. Go back to front here. And I'm kind of looking around at what else I want to define. I think I'm going to cut these here. I'm going to hit connect. Pull this out a little bit, just like that. And I'm going to target weld these guys together, like so. That's good for our profile anyways. Okay, let's go over to the front, or the left. I've got my names mixed up here. There we are. And we'll start defining this area. Don't be afraid to use when you're moving these around, you don't have to lock it to the axes here. Don't be afraid to mix those lines up a little bit, because the more organic it looks, the better off you're really going to be. I'm kind of modeling this area over here a little bit different than what my drawing is. Trying to get a little bit more interesting shape. There we go. And that looks okay, but this area here you can see is going to be a little bit too big, I think. And what I'm going to do is grab, that's a little bit too flat right through there. So I'm going to again connect those. I'm going to target weld these pieces here on the other side too. And we can kind of pull these out a little bit. There we go. See what we're doing. I can pull these out just a little bit and round that area off. There we go. We'll make for a nice shadow under there. Okay, so kind of poking around again here, just making sure everything looks good. So I'm closing in any of these areas that the polygons just look a little bit too big. There we go. Okay, here's the other area that we were dealing with, is up here, this area. And again, I'm just going to grab all the way through here and connect all those. Make sure my ring runs all the way around. It does. And we'll maneuver those into position. You can see these don't really match up with that curve, so that's why I'm moving these. I want this curve to really match up, and when you use connect, it's not going to automatically kind of reset these curves for you. There's a little trick while we're doing it, is if you have trouble maneuvering around your viewport, you can just make a small selection and use this rotate with the yellow center, and it will rotate around that particular selection. And you can see here, we want to kind of maneuver these out a little bit. There we go. A little bit better. Okay, and so now we've got this shape starting to take place of our leg. Just kind of maneuvering a few other things into place there, and we're looking pretty good as far as the overall shape. I'm going to tackle this bottom section down here. Actually, don't need to move anything yet. One thing I am going to do before I start, though, is just move this up a little bit, and I'm going to follow this curve down just a little bit, like so. Okay, so I've got this kind of curved piece down here. All right, and all I'm going to do with this, now in this case you're going to see me moving around a lot because I like to model this. When I get into these kind of tight little areas, I like to do border extrudes, and I've got an open border here. Remember, if you don't have a border there, it's because you have polygons on that cap. You'll need to delete those. And I'm just going to extrude these out to make new geometry. And I'm going to go little by little on this. And you just want to keep your borders somewhat straight. Of course, we've got to match this geometry as well. So this piece here is going to be this little sleeve. You can see it kind of comes in, pinches in, and then I'm going to extrude out. I'm holding down Shift to make those extrudes. Now see here, this piece, I need this chunk down here, but there's really nothing up here to make. And he's got kind of like a little, I've got a funky edge there. Let me fix this real quick. I got a funky edge I didn't see earlier going on here. There we go. That's what I mean about these borders coming straight out. There, much better. You want to keep those organized. You can see I've got another one down here. This is from extruding in my perspective window. See, this is all messed up down here. These guys have got to go over here. Alright, a little better. Huh, there's another one there. Have to keep an eye on that. That's not good. Okay. Alright, so back to lining this up. Let me go back to my front view. Okay, and what I was doing before is these can be target welded up here. That can target weld to there. This guy can target weld to there. And this guy can actually target weld over here. Even though you don't see that vertex, it's there. I knew it was there, so I just welded it. So those top three, this guy's crooked too. This is, again, what I meant by making sure your borders are straight. There we go. Okay. And we're just extruding straight out there. And now I'm going to go back to my border, which is right there now. And this piece, all I'm going to do in this case is I'm just going to extrude these edges, I guess. They don't need the... Well, I think I've changed my mind. I'm going to do a border extrude on this, and then I'll weld the faces, since that's what I've been doing to start with. Holding down Shift again, I'm going to extrude straight out, kind of position this guy in place. There we go. I'm doing this piece down here, in case you can't tell what I'm doing. These pieces are going to go up here. This piece is going to have another extrude to it. And these guys all get to be welded again. So that guy goes there. This guy, there's a point back in here somewhere. I can't find it right now. This guy goes there. And we'll extrude around real quick. This guy is going to go right there. Okay. And you can see now we've got this piece coming down. Place this where I want it. These guys can go up a little bit higher. See, here's this edge coming down. And now I'm just going to go to my edges, because really all I need are these edges right here. And I'm going to extrude those out. See, I'm coming straight along this bottom piece here. This guy's going to come up there. And these two are going to be target welded. That one's going to go there. This one's going to go there. And now I've got this bottom piece that comes out down there. See how we do that? So we just kind of just model it as we go. Alright, and now we're back to a fairly even edge with this. There's my open border. I'm going to extrude that out. I'm doing this next little hoof thing going on here. This can come down. That means these two guys can come down. These guys can come down a little bit. There we go. We need one more extrude. And oops, this guy's going to come way down. These guys are going to come way down. There we go. There we go, and that's where that hoof piece is now going to come out. Make sure you're spinning this around every once in a while to make sure everything is going where it should. Remember, we're only doing one side so far, so it's going to look a little wacky on the other angles. Now, this hoof piece, I'm going to extrude this straight out. And again, we'll just kind of manipulate these pieces as we extrude them. I'm going to push this one back in here and kind of get it evened out a little bit more. And these two guys are going to come down like that, I think. There we go. Come up a little bit. Extrude that out again. Push them down. And as you get closer to the edge, you want to kind of get these guys flatter and flatter in a straight line here. Oops. Let me redo that, or I'm going to end up with a funky edge there. Okay. There we go. These guys got to come down a little bit more. So see, we're getting in a smaller and smaller area here, where this hoof is eventually just going to kind of flatten down onto the ground. And to make that happen, I'm going to go to target weld, and I'm going to start welding a few of these together and oops, that's not the one I wanted to weld. And simplifying this down a little bit, so that one's going to weld there. Same on the other side. This guy's going to weld there. And we can grab all of these vertexes right here actually and probably rotate them around a little bit and just push them down onto the ground a little bit more. There we go. So all we're left with are some welds here that have to be made. And I think we can, actually we can probably get away with just creating a few more polygons. We'll just make a few polygons real quick. Got to go to polygon and create. And we can do that. There we go. 1, 2, that's a 4-sided polygon. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Okay, so we ended up with that bottom piece being capped off there. Go to the front, kind of take a look at this, see what it looks like, and do any last minute modeling that we need to with it. And then we'll hop over to the other views. I think I want, this is too straight here, so I'm going to put a connect in there. And every time we make a connect, we usually have to target weld something. In this case, it's this guy. Spin it around so we can see a little better. There we go. Okay. that gives us an extra piece there. To just kind of poke it out a little bit. That looks good. There's our hoof. We'll flatten that out in a second. Now, of course, we've got a bigger issue here, and that's going to be this side, which right now my horse looks like he kind of has a disease happening. Now, it doesn't really help me much when you get these straight-on views. This isn't going to help me much. I'm really just going to have to model this from the top down and kind of guess where these pieces are. So going by this view, you can see this piece here, which we can probably grab the edge loops. Oops, that's the ring. Edge loop, there we go. That edge loop has to be pinched in. And it didn't select it all the way around because that's a manufactured one. That's one I made. There we go. Make sure I have that all the way around. That one's going to have to be pinched in a little bit. And to do that, I'm just going to kind of pinch it in here. Remember, you only have to work on one axis because we got the other axis correct. There we go. And that looks about right. This edge loop right here, which goes all the way around, we'll grab this one too. I don't need this piece. That one's fine. That one's going to be pinched in as well. There we go. You can see it's really going to get exaggerated because we're in a very small space here. That looks pretty good. And then we've got this piece here. Edge loop that guy. He should go all the way around, yeah. And we'll pinch that one in. There we go. So now we've kind of got our hoof happening. I want a little bit more hoof on this side, so it's a little bit more rounded. Same with this piece here. Just kind of forming this the way that I want it. Looks a little too dented up down there. There we go. Check the bottom. Okay. And if you want to make the bottom perfectly flat, you can grab all the vertices that would be in the bottom. Also this one, that 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 one. All those are in the bottom of the foot. Well, not all of those. Some of those. I'm holding down Alt to deselect a few. I'm just picking the ones I want flat on the ground. Holding down Alt again to deselect. There we go. And what I'm going to do is just scale them flat into each other. And this will make them all perfectly flat. So you can see if I go to my front view and go back, I can pull all these down and they'll all be flat on the ground, which you may want, especially if you're going to animate this guy. There we go. So now we have our hoof in place. And real quick, we'll Alt-X, we'll get this guy back out. I'm going to color it again brown, so I'm used to it. I'm going to grab all the polygons in this. You can see all of them are grabbed. And I'm going to add the same smoothing group to all of them. So I'm going to uncheck these. There we go. And just click one of these buttons. That puts the same smoothing group on all of them. And so now if I render this, we'll really be able to see what that's looking like right now. So that's not bad for where we need to be so far. We're going to add a little bit more detail to this. And again, we'll be back in a minute. This is where we left off. I haven't done anything to this. You can see that if I hit Alt-X, we have what looks to be a pretty good horse leg. It matches our reference pretty well, nearly exact. And I've also, I'm going to unhide this piece here, which is not in the scene you have. I just did this in between video cuts. But this is what we're going to get to in our final step. And if I render these two, you'll see that they're different. I can actually get rid of my original background templates. I'll render these out real quick. And what we're going to do is apply some smoothing groups. You can see this is where we're at now. And it gets a little blobby or a little kind of indecisive down here. This is with the smoothing groups. You can see it's much sharper. And we have some creases in here where we don't here. So we're going to put the creases where we want. We're just going to use smoothing groups for this, and then we would apply a normal map and texture to this, and we would get the rest of our detail. So all we really need to do, I'm going to hide this selection. I'm going to save this as your final one here. So you'll have the same thing. There you go. And all I'm going to do, we'll zoom in down here at the hoof, rotate around, hide this piece, which I didn't see before, and all we're going to do, whoops, just disappeared. Huh. That's kind of strange. It's not, okay, now it's working. We'll select this guy, we're going to go to polygons, and I'm going to select the hoof, so we'll practice on the hoof here. Smoothing groups are easy once you figure out how they work. So I'm just grabbing all the polygons that are in the hoof, just the hoof, not that little fold of skin that's above it. Also a trick is if you tilt your models into an isometric view where you can't select polygons behind your selection. It's a lot easier to select things that way. Okay, so I just have the hoof, not the bottom part. I'm going to go down here to my smoothing groups. I'm going to not apply the smoothing group that was there, which was 1. I'm just going to make this 2, and now you can see when so I've taken off the main group, which the rest of this has 1. This just has 2, and you'll see now we have a little definition there. I'm going to do the same thing with this little fold of skin here. That piece there. I'm going to select underneath this too. And you can see there I selected through. And what I mean by isometric is, see, if I place my model at this angle, I can get a hold of that polygon. I don't have to worry about selecting through to any polygons on the other side. There we go. We'll grab these. There we go. So I have all those. Those are going to be 3. I'm going to take off 1. You can see there's no smoothing group on it now, and apply 3. And now I've got that piece of definition going on there. Zoom in here a little bit. I need to get a hold of these tight little guys here. So this whole section, holding down Control to add to my selection. I think we got one more there. Yeah. Okay. That one's going to be 4, and I'll take off 1. And so now I've got this piece defined. Now, I don't really want to just make this piece here. So if I grabbed all of these polygons right in here, I don't want to make this piece its own smoothing group. I'll show you what will happen. So I'm going to take off the, make sure, I could tell by my smoothing groups options I had the wrong polygon selected there. Okay, there we go. Now, make sure I don't unsmooth something I want to smooth. Okay, much better. We'll grab this guy while we're at it. I'm hitting the wrong button, in case you can't tell, on my keyboard. That's the problem I'm running into. Okay, so I'm going to put, say, smoothing group 6 on here and take off 1. This is what we don't want. So we don't want that line there. That looks a little odd. So what I can do, this all has smoothing group 1 on it now. So see, it's all smooth right here. Is I can add separate smoothing groups to this. So I can add, say, 7 and take off 1. Then up here, all of this, let's make it everything else for sake of confusion. All of that is going to be, take off 7, 8, and 1. You can see what I have now. See, I have a line right here. I don't really want that line there. Doesn't really look right. But I do want the crease right here in the front. And the way I can keep the crease in the front is I can just grab these polygons back here that overlap. Doesn't really matter which polygons you grab. And I can make that have, say, smoothing group 6 as well. And now I keep this crease here, but you can see where smoothing group 6, or that overlapping group, showed up. It just kind of blends over. So you can mix your smoothing groups, basically. So this is like a patch of smoothing groups. That's an extra smoothing group just to smooth out the crease that was caused right there. So now I have this leg looking pretty good. That's what we ended up with. If you'd like to reset your X form, because it is a little bit crooked here, you can see. If that's important to you, you can go over here and hit Reset X Form. And now it's nice and straight. That's not going to hurt in this case because we're just going to apply that. This is going to go on obviously a body part eventually. And that is our leg. And we'll render it out one more last time.